Joe, today you're going to take us on a click-by-click tutorial of the integration between a Bosch IP camera and a Bosch G or B series intrusion panel. And in order to do that, what we're essentially having happen is the IP camera is able to be used as a sensor within an intrusion system. So you can take advantage of video analytics and things like that to create alarms that are different than perhaps a motion detector or something like that. In order to make this happen, we have some hardware and we have some software. So the first piece of hardware we have that was used in this video is a Bosch G series B9512, which you have right there for us, running firmware 3.09.050. Attached to that is a keypad, which might be mounted to a wall in a real-life environment. So this keypad is model B942. Our third piece of hardware is the camera, and in this case it's a 3000i series camera. It's the Bosch NDE-3502-AL, and that is running firmware version 7.61.0023, and it's a CPP 7.3 camera. On the software side of things, we're running Bosch remote programming software, commonly referred to as RPS, version 6.08.200. We'll also be using Configuration Manager, version 7.01.0136.0. And the application running on your telephone to be able to receive alerts and turn on and off the alarm is the Bosch Remote Security Control, which is RSC, version 3.0.1. And I guess what's worth mentioning here is, some people watching this may have a slightly newer or slightly older version of firmware or a camera model. And so your experience may be a little bit different than what you see on the screen. So with that said, Joe, why don't you go ahead and take it away with our click-by-click tutorial.
So we will start out using remote programming software, or RPS. We will want to find our panel. In this case, it's the demo panel. Double click to open up the panel view. The first thing we're going to do is go to panel-wide parameters and add the IP camera. So here I'm going to choose camera 3. We have some other things programmed in the panel that I don't want to overwrite those points. Camera 3 will correlate to points 31 through 38 in the panel. I know that I do not have anything programmed there. First thing we're going to do is give the camera name in the panel. We need to add the IP address of the camera. RCP port stays the same. We need to give the service password of the camera to RPS. That way the panel can communicate to the camera. We do not, in this situation, we're not going to change the supervision period. You can if you want a delay when arming the panel. We are going to use HTTPS, which is the secure version of HTTP. HTTP uses TLS to encrypt requests and responses. Instead of using the HTTPS standard port number 443, we're going to choose 10444. And remember, when you set this up in the camera, you also need to set up port forwarding in your router. We also need to give the panel the live username of the camera as well. So we got to make sure we set that up. That way you can live view the camera from the RSC app. So next we will go to point assignments, and we will assign a point to the camera. So we're going to go to points, point assignments, And in this case, I'm going to use 0.31. So the camera uses 31 through 38 in this case. 0.31 is going to correlate to IVA event 1. So here I'm just going to give it a name, which in this case is the front door, and it's the front door VCA rule 1 in the camera. Also, I need to assign it a point profile. In this case, I'm going to use 7, which is in 24, or is a part 1 instant. So as soon as the IVA event is triggered, the panel will immediately go into alarm. Now we're going to go to output, and we want to set an output under area armed. So I'm going to use output 31 because that correlates with the camera. So output 31 will talk to virtual input 1 on the camera. So in this case, I'm using area armed. That way, when the area is armed, it will fire that relay to the virtual input of the camera, and then we will have the VCA event active. We also should give that output a name under output configuration. We'll go to output 31. We'll assign that to the IP camera, and then we're going to give it an output text. So the next thing we'll do is go to user configuration and user assignments. And here I'm using user 2, that is the passcode, and I just want to make sure that user 2 does have remote access. That way in the RSC app, we're able to view the panel as well as the camera that we're setting up. The next thing we will do is go to panel-wide parameters, area-wide parameters, do all on, no exit, and make sure that is set as no. So the next thing we will set up is the personal notification. So we're going to go to panel-wide parameters, personal notification, and personal notification destination. So we need to set a description. And we need to give it a phone number or email address. In this case, I'm using a phone number so that I get a text message from the panel. Next thing we'll go to is personal notification reports, and report route group 4. We want to put the personal notification that we just created under there. So now everything assigned to route group 4 will be texted to my cell phone in this case. Now we want to save, connect to the panel, now we will send RPS data to the panel. We want to disconnect from the panel, and then we can close the panel view. Next thing we're going to set up is to be able to use RCS on our phone. So we need to go to the top of RPS, click on the cell phone symbol. That opens up profile types, and we're going to set up a remote security control profile. User 2 is the user we set up. We can set an active date range. And now the next thing to remember is you're going to email this, but first you must go to the open file location. When you click on that, it will show you where the file is saved. You want to copy that file. You want to make sure to paste that into the email so that when you open up the email on the device with RSC, you can open that file with RSC. And that basically will load the RSC file into the phone for the panel. So the next thing we're going to do is now configure the camera. This camera already has an IP address set. So we need to set an initial password for service. So we will set that, save. Next thing we will do is set a live password for the camera, because remember we gave the panel a live password. That way we can view video from the RSC app. Make sure we want to set that and save. It does not have to be the same password as service. In this case it is. We want to make sure we sync the time of the camera. That way it's up to date. Here I'm changing the name of the camera. And then next we will go to camera name stamping and make sure that the name stamping as well as the time stamping is on the camera. So next we're going to calibrate the camera. Here we need to set the height, roll angle, and the tilt angle. And now this is a 3000 series camera, so it does not have the MEMS chip that is able to understand tilt and roll. So we have to give the camera those values. I know the roll angle is roughly 0 degrees. The tilt angle I guessed, and you can see here I'm testing that to make sure that the 20-degree tilt angle is fairly accurate. So now we save that, and now the camera is calibrated. Now we'll go to VCA, set to profile 1, and we're going to now set up a VCA task. So detect any object is fine. I'm going to edit that task. So the whole screen, I'm going to define my own field. In this case, the field is going to be a box right in front of my door. I'm going to lower the debounce time to 0.1. And object base point in this case is fine. That is all we have to set up under VCA tasks. And now we will go to metadata generation. Because here I would like to turn on 3D tracking. In this next step, you will see why. So we'll go back to tasks. We will edit the task that we just created. And now we're going to click on upright persons. That way we only alarm on upright persons. Now we're going to go to the alarm portion of the camera. So I want the camera to send me a text message when the VCA event goes into alarm. So under alarm email, I need to define a mail server IP address, an SMTP port, an SMTP username, an SMTP password, and then I want to attach a JPEG image from the camera. I need to determine the image size. And I'm going to also choose the VCA overlay so that I can see the object that triggered the alarm. And now I'm going to put in the destination address. Here I can put in my cell phone number, and this is at a vzw.pix. That way it will actually send me an email in a form of a text message to my phone. And then after that, you need to put in the sender address. After that is entered, it is always a good idea to hit test email, and you will get a snapshot of the camera. Just a good idea to make sure that it's working and everything is filled out correctly. The next thing we'll go to is the network tab. We'll make sure the camera has a gateway address as well as a DNS server address. Here we need to make sure that the camera can reach the gateway and the outside world outside of the local network. Some security requirements we want to set up is a minimum TLS version of 1.2. We want to turn HSTS on, as well as set our HTTPS port to 10.444. And remember, you want to set that up in your router as well to forward port 10.444, or the port you directed. After you set up that under the network tab, you want to make sure you save. Then you're going to click off the camera in Configuration Manager and click back onto the camera. Now you're going to connect to that same camera and IP address, but at port 10.4.4, so you need to sign back in and authenticate with the camera again. Now we can go to the alarming. Again, test the email, make sure it works. Now you want to go back to the VCA, and we're going to put the camera into operating mode, event triggered. The trigger, again, is going to be the virtual alarm input 1, because the panel is going to fire the virtual output 31 to the virtual alarm input 1 of the camera. Trigger active is profile 1, so the VCA event that we set up, and trigger inactive is silent VCA. The reason we set this up is so that when the panel is unarmed, the camera's set as silent VCA, so you do not get any alarms, and then when the panel is armed, the camera will switch over into the active VCA profile and will then alarm when someone walking into that trigger. The last thing we need to do is go into Alarm Task Editor, and we need to edit this alarm task script. So what we want to change here is just one of these if-thens, and we're going to change that to if VCA rule 1 in camera 1, then mail. All of the other if-thens underneath we can get rid of, because in this situation we will not be utilizing those. And now the last thing you want to do is go back to the VCA tab, and we just want to test to make sure this is all working. So right now the camera's in silent VCA. You can open up the RSC app, arm the panel, and you want to see the camera change from silent VCA to profile number 1, which here it does. So we know all of that functionality is now working. Now we can open up the RSC app, go to cameras, select the camera that we just added to the panel, and now we can see the live view from the RSC app from our cell phone. Here I am standing down in front of my driveway. I have the RSC app open, and I am now signing into the demo panel. Right now the system is off. I'm going to click the green button, turn the system on, and wait for the panel to arm. So now the panel is armed. I will now begin walking up my driveway. You can see that the camera has already defined me as an upright person. I'll turn, walk down the sidewalk, and as soon as I get into the VCA rule, it triggers and goes into alarm. So what we see at the panel is the panel is an alarm. There's the keypad showing what point 31. You can see on the right-hand side, I'm getting a text message from the panel as well as a text message from the camera showing the virtual alarm as well as a JPEG image of the alarm. And in the RSC app, we can see that area 1 has an alarm, and it shows us point 31 front door VCA alarm.